welcome back. So this eye look is a look that I did with my dupe of the Natasha Denona Golden Palette. So I'm going to go over the shades and let you know what I'm thinking. I think I've got a pretty good dupe, and I mostly use Natasha Denona shades as well as 2 lethal shades. So I'm going to give you the name of the shade and swatch it, and then yeah, we'll wrap everything up. So here we go. Okay, so the Natasha Denona Gold Palette is an oldie but goodie. Now, she has recently released the Golden Palette. The Gold Palette is one of her larger palettes with the larger pans, but the Golden is a mid-size, one of the midi. So, I saw on her website, like about a month back, a couple weeks back, I was looking for something and I saw the Golden Palette and I'm like, what is this? Is this new? And I put it on Reddit and a bunch of us bought the palette. But then the next day we got an email that said, oh, sorry, we canceled your order because this was like mistakenly released ahead of time. That happens a lot for Natasha. I don't know. Some might say it's a little curious. So anyway, a couple weeks later, more recently, she released the Golden Palette. So those of us who have the Gold Palette, I think we've all been looking at the Golden, or even those who don't have the Gold Palette. Now, I'm not gonna buy it. I'm not gonna buy the Golden Palette. One, I don't need it, and I'll tell you why. The shimmers in the Golden have her newer formula. That newer formula started with the I Need a Nude palette. And so the shimmers are a bit, in my experience, a bit lighter and less opaque. Like, to me, they're more like toppers. And when I use shimmers, I prefer more of like the boom pow effect. I want to be able to have that opacity pretty early on in applying, and I just prefer, you know, that's what I prefer. That's my own preference. I don't know if that fits for you or not. If it doesn't fit, if you do like the lighter sort of more ethereal kind of shimmer, then you'll probably like her palette starting at I Need a Nude and going forward. I prefer the older formula, and so I've kind of been not really purchasing her palettes just because I don't want the new formula. I just don't. So the other thing with the Gold and the Golden, there are 9 shades in the Gold palette that are repeated in the Golden palette. So I'll be sure to put up a picture of these. Another difference is that the Gold palette, the larger palette, has like some teals in there, while Golden is just kind of all goldish, brownish, tannish, whatevs. So because I don't like the newer formula for how I like to do my makeup, and because I have the Gold palette and there are so many repeats across the two, I figured that I would just go ahead and dupe the palette. So I really like to do this with like newer palettes that are coming out, especially like Natasha Denona. I dupe a lot of her palettes. I basically just sit down, I look at the picture, and I go through my singles, or even my palettes that are at least magnetic, and then I kind of see if I can put together something close. And I think I got it with this dupe palette. Now, this is more of like a straight on dupe. I'm considering doing one where I make it like a bit more darker skin friendly, because there are some lighter shades in here that I think like are just light and could do better in terms of the palette with some deeper shades. So I don't know, let me know if you want that, and I'll do like a dark skin friendly version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swatch these. I'm going to tell you what shade they are, where they come from, and then I'm just going to wrap it up, and you can let me know what you think, which palette you have, if you're getting the new one, and yeah. So I'm going to do the swatches now. Okay. So this palette that I put together is definitely for the person who has other Natasha Denona palettes. I believe I used the gold palette along with Biba and I believe Sunset. Now, all of the repeat shades are in here except for this shade here, Oro. Now, this one is included in the golden, and so I think that the picture on her website is a little misleading and the colors are a little off, because when I placed this shade in here, it would have been right here. It looked really off from the picture of the palette. So I took it out, even though it is in the golden palette, and just swapped it for something that looks a bit more similar to the picture of the palette. So yeah, let me go ahead and swatch these and tell you the shades. So this shade here is named Tusk, and it is from the Biba palette. Biba is actually a palette that I really like. The next shade is Aubade, and it is from the Sunset palette. Another one that I really like. The next shade is a Lethal Cosmetics shade, and it is called Ephemeral. So you can already see the palette seems to have quite a few lighter shades already off the bat. Now, the next shade is from the gold palette, and it is called Aria. Barely see that, huh? Let's do another swatch. And then the next shade is Shine from the Biba palette. Here is the shade Varus, and it is from the gold palette. This shade here is called Sparks, and it's also from the gold palette. This shade is Teak from the gold palette. This shade is Kava from the gold palette. And this shade is Sandstone from the gold palette. Now, this last row here, we have Arum from the gold palette. Then we have Log from, guess where? The gold palette. We have Sundays from the Sunset palette. Then we have Delirium from Lethal Cosmetics. Oh, wait, I'm over here. And lastly, we have Alchemist from the gold palette. So this is the palette that I think is closest to what I believe the new golden palette looks like. As I said, there are a lot of shades that are already in here from the gold palette. So when I look at the palette and what, you know, is already in here from gold, that would be a repeat in golden. We have Aria from the gold palette, Varus, Sparks, Gold, or I'm sorry, Teak, Kava, Sandstone. That whole row is from the gold palette. And then Arum, Log, and Alchemist. So basically I added Tusk, which is from Biba, Aubade, which is from Sunset. This is a lethal shade. And Shine, which is from Biba. Then This shade here, Sundays, is from Sunset palette, and Delirium is a lethal shade. So basically, to me, the Golden palette is a like neutral brown and gold palette. I wish that they had included the teal shades from the gold palette, because I think that would have zhuzhed it up a little bit, but it sounds like they really just wanted to go the golden kind of color scheme. In terms of whether or not the palette is worth it, you know, you have to decide that. For me, it is not, mainly because I have all those shades in the gold palette, and the ones that are newer in the golden are either shimmers that I don't like the formula of, or mattes that I want deeper versions of, right? So like, if you have gold, you have like 9 of the shades that are in the golden palette. And then for me, I can find a good shimmer in a lot of other places, and I'm pretty sure I can dupe this palette even without using Natasha Denona shades. I think I could do it with my lethal shades. I think I could do it with some of my other singles, Viseart. Yeah, those are just off the top some that I'm thinking of. So that's about it for me. Definitely not going to get the golden palette. I regularly use the shades in the Biba palette. Now that I've really paid more attention to the gold palette, I'm going to use these more, even though I get some good use out of that palette as well. And I think I'm just going to stick to my other like neutral brown palettes from like Colored Rain, Blend Bunny, Viseart again. Yeah, I think I'm good. Beauty Bay. So let me know if you are getting the golden palette. Let me know what you like about it if you are getting it. And let me know if you're just sticking with gold or you don't care about any of them and you're just doing you and not worrying about Miss Natasha. That's fair. Anyways, I hope that some of this was helpful, and I also hope that you are continuing to take care of yourself. If I didn't mention, this look is from this little palette that I put together. Really easy. I just used this shimmer here, Sparks, and then I went in with some of the mattes on the outer corner. I would love it if you liked the video, and I would love it even more if you subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.